Aye.
You wanna wait?
No.
Okay. All right, so we will gavel up, and call to order. Let's start with Mike Smith. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Even observers, so thank you for joining us on a Monday night. Much nicer outside than probably sitting in here. Let's do a roll call. I'll start with with directors first. Merle. Here. Heidi. Here. Robert. Here. Kelsey. Here. Jenny. Here. Crystal. Here. And Cher's here. So then let's do budget committee. Stacy. Here. Brent. Mike. Jay. Here. And Emily. Here. Moving along, let's do, do I turn it over to former chair or do we need to do a reorg?
You can start the nomination.
Okay. So I'll preside until we have somebody from budget committee, so I would accept nominations for chair for the budget committee.
I'll nominate Crystal.
Is it me or does it have to be a budget person? It's a budget person, right?
Generally, it's budget committee person, but it doesn't have to be, I don't think, does it?
Don't know.
Last time we had a,
I don't know that there's a rule. Is there?
Are we free to nominate Linda?
No.
no.
I'm not a mess. I'm not a-
Has to be a voting member. Diane, do you have a call on that?
So
Typically in the past, it is the budget committee member that is elected the committee chair for the evening.
I'll nominate Jay Jones.
second.
Nomination is second. I will assume that was a withdrawal on the.
Who was the second?
Not legitimate, why?
What was that, Diane?
Who was the second?
Emily.
Emily Hammond.
Thank you.
Any more nominations? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of electing Jay Jones for chair of the budget committee, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Welcome aboard. I'll turn it over to you, as chairman of these proceedings.
We're going to turn some time over to Dr. Rose for a superintendent's budget message. Thank you.
You'll find it on page 7.
Dear North Marion School District Budget Committee members, board members, staff, and patrons. In accordance with ORS 294.391, I'm submitting to you the North Marion School District proposed 2024-2025 budget. Investing in a mission and a vision. Tonight, as superintendent of the North Marion School District, I have the pleasure of presenting the budget message. This is a proposal of a general fund budget of $27,107,658. I want to take this moment to acknowledge the tremendous work that's been done over the course of this year and thank everyone involved for what's been accomplished. The development of this budget presented to you for your consideration has provided an opportunity for us to reflect on our commitment to investing in our mission to learn together while cultivating lifelong growth. We believe the investments proposed support strategies aligned to our vision, values, and board goals, and support an investment in opportunity for each child to learn at high levels, despite the challenges they may face. I bring this message to you with pride and with optimism that we can close the gap between our ability to sustain high levels of excellence and the resources we might have available with which to do so. We're confident that our culture of growth mindset and belief in what we can accomplish by working together will lead to outstanding results. We are committed to making the best investments possible with the resources available to create the educational opportunities our students deserve. We would not be in this place of optimism without the leadership of our board and the support of our school community. I want to thank our families, our cities, our teachers, our building and district leaders, our support staff, and the many community partners who have stepped up again and again in support of our schools and our children. We are grateful and humbled by the generosity, grace, kindness, and resilience of our North Marion community. Our progress over the past years has been exceptional, given the impact of the pandemic on our schools and our children. We have accomplished this through consistent investment and sustained support for a rich and diverse range of opportunities for students, including our hallmark CTE programs. Importantly, with community support for a bond to build and renovate facilities and support from one-time federal funds, our students increasingly experience learning and playing in safe and high-quality environments that enhance their experiences at school. The integrated plan for state grants that support our North Marion strategic plan envisions strategies shaped by extensive community outreach to support students beyond the general fund. As a result, the 2024-25 school year, in the 2024-25 school year, we are maximizing staff to provide support for high-quality teaching and learning, for staff to support outreach and programs for our multilingual and multicultural community, for staffing support for early literacy, to provide support for transitions, to extend learning time, and to further personalize instruction by enhancing the range of learning opportunities available to students. This includes expanded opportunities and refreshed instructional materials to support science, math, language development, and a range of career and technical programs. We're investing strategically. For 2024-2025, we are submitting a balanced general fund budget of $27,107,658. That's based on a state funding level of $10.2 billion for the biennium. We are moving into the second year of the biennium, and generally the second year brings clarity to the revenue picture. While there are some uncertainties at this time, staff continue to plan confidently and strategically for investment in the delivery of programs, services, and instruction to achieve our goals with the resources we have available. This proposed general fund budget assumes a state school fund allocation of $18,477,620 based on a $10.2 billion state budget. That the allocation above is approximately $567,000 more than our current allocation for 2023-2024. That the investment is 51% of the biennial allocation as compared to 49% last year. Our ADMW, average daily membership weighted, our student enrollment, will continue to decline as it has since 2015-2016. We will see a slight increase in property tax collections. We will invest $2,855,000 of our ending fund balance as a beginning fund balance. The district continues to run on a modified accrual basis for accounting, and the budget document presented today and adopted with any modifications in June becomes the financial plan of the district for 2024-2025. Expenditure assumptions. We will honor negotiated contracts with classified staff and continue to negotiate with our licensed staff. Personnel costs make up 77% of the general fund budget. We anticipate an increase in personnel costs for all funds, $1.24 million based on cost of living adjustments, COLAs, and step increases in negotiated contracts. This budget provides for a 3.5% COLA, cost of living adjustment. This budget also provides an additional $70 per month in health insurance. We will fund the 2024-2025 school calendar year at 173 student contact days, 1 day more than in 2023-2024. There will be increased costs in transportation, utilities, and support for special needs students. And $1,163,607 will be allocated to contingency. Staffing and program assumptions. With some strategic reductions, we will sustain our current investments in high-quality staff and programs. We will allocate staff and resources to support early literacy. We will allocate staff to provide strategic support for targeted student services. We will allocate resources to support programs and partnerships in CTE and opportunities to earn college credit. We will allocate staff and resources to support critical student transition. And we will allocate resources to support new instructional materials and professional development in science, primary school math, and in English language development. Our current challenges: the continuing decline of student enrollment and the uncertainties declining enrollment creates for long-term planning. Rising costs due to inflation. The ending of one-time federal sources of funding, specifically ESSER funds. There are fluctuating financial conditions related to how the state calculates and allocates payments. Developing long-term strategies for sustainability given the current economic unknowns. Our current state funding formulas are not keeping pace with inflation and student needs. In calculating the ultimate cost of the licensed staff contract negotiations currently underway. A note on special revenues. Though not a part of the general fund budget, we anticipate that combined our Title I-A, Title I-C, Title II, and Title III grants will be funded at approximately the same level as 2023-2024, based on projections from the Oregon Department of Education. The integrated plan, which holds the student investment account, Measure 98, high school success, early learning, and Perkins CTE allocations, are included in special revenues and not in the proposed general fund budget. This budget is based on the estimated allocations for these funds. The early literacy grant will support staffing and materials to enhance early literacy development at the primary school, and our summer learning grant will provide critical resources to provide extended learning opportunities during the summer. A note on capital projects. Capital projects funded by a community-supported bond were completed this year when new roofs were installed over the high school commons cafeteria, over the breezeway between the high school and the intermediate school, and over the wrestling room and intermediate school covered play area. The play area and wrestling facility were also able to be painted with this investment. With the wise use of one-time ESSER funds, other critical capital investments included installing a new HVAC system at the intermediate school and in the wrestling area, completing needed asphalt work, creating safer access to high school athletic facilities, improving outdoor safety with grounds cleanup and tree removal, and improving indoor safety with the installation of new fireproof doors at the middle school and the soundproofing of critical areas in the high school. Facilities upgrades were made possible as the district collaborated with key community partners and volunteers to prepare the site and to install a new soccer facility on the property at the corner of Boones Ferry Road and Grimm Road. These improvements and upgrades support the long-term maintenance, upkeep, and protection of the community's investments in its school facilities and grounds. In closing, as always, we are optimistic about what we can and will accomplish with the investments proposed here. While we're grateful to our state leaders and legislators for their support for schools, we look forward to their leadership and needed support as they make critical decisions around school funding in the coming months. We look forward to working with them to establish funding for education as a priority, so our schools can take advantage of the great potential they hold for closing the opportunity gaps that still exist between what every student deserves and what they have, regardless of the district, school, or classroom they attend. In North Marion, we will work together to increase our efficiency and effectiveness. We will look for opportunities to leverage our resources as we work together to achieve our goal. Our sincerest thanks goes to everyone who's participated in this budget development process, whether visibly or behind the scenes. Your collaboration, your feedback, your advocacy, and your ongoing support is very much appreciated, and it lays the foundation for providing school experiences that cause our children to believe in themselves and what they can do. Respectfully submitted, William B. Rhodes, Superintendent. And thank you, Linda Murray, all your tremendous support, in doing these things.
Thank you, Dr. Rhodes. We appreciate your words there. A great view into our future of our students and our school. We appreciate your time and efforts you've given here to North Marion and everything you've done here in your time. Thank you. We'd like to turn the time now to Linda for any comments or presenting that she'd like to do with regards to budget.
Okay, I think that Bill might have some more comments, or do you want me to go first?
I think, go ahead. Yeah, I think you're good.
Let's flip to page 14. Usually people have questions and or comments about the staffing pages. And really you look at 13 and 14 together, and it shows you a vision of about a 5-year look at what has been going on in page 14, and a much longer look on the other page. We took, as I said in the budget committee meeting workshop, but not everyone was here. We were able to take 4 IAs that were funded in the general fund and move them to SIA and put them over there and fund them over there, which was a great boost and a better way to help balance our. The other changes are very minimal compared to what they were prior years. So unless anyone has questions, I won't review any more of that. Yes,
Can you remind me, what is supervisor?
me, no, excuse me, let me see. Yeah, I am, and Dave Schultz is our fiscal.
You're not
maintenance.
confidential?
I'm confidential, but there's 2 different numbers you put them in, so that's why it come out different.
Okay.
So I am confidential, and so are the people in supervisor.
What line are you looking at here?
Page 13.
On page 14, the second section from the right,
Thank you.
yeah, where it says, the top line says license, classified administration, confidential and supervisory. The supervisory and confidential go together. And then you'll see the food service director is supervisory. Pages 15, 16, and 17 is information that we have to have in here by law, so it doesn't To me, page 15 and 16 really doesn't tell you anything, because if a person is split into two functions, it tells you a portion of their pay, not the whole, so it's kind of a silly thing, but let me tell you, the auditors check books every year, so there it is. I gave people, new pages that had picked up their books on Friday, because I had a couple of mistakes on one of the pages. Page 23 is a really good page for review. It has to do with the expenditures, and it shows you, a 3-year look. And one thing I wanted to point out is that you can see the rising cost in our transportation. And we had brought that to the board this past year, actually, I think the last 2 years, where we raised our rates for that. It was last year. And, you know, to be competitive and to get drivers, we really had to do that. And so it really shows, if you go back to the actual expenses in 22, 23 versus what we're budgeting now, it's about almost $1 million. So it really does add up pretty quickly. The other thing we're seeing, increase all across the state is our, property and liability insurance. So that one, even though the number isn't as big, but for us, it went up about $70,000. And that's a chunk of change for us.
And I'm sure, Linda, this has been looked at, but you know, we get messages on a regular basis that bus 8 is combining with bus 12, or, you know, because.
And then I don't get billed quite as much.
You know, but then you wonder, can that be permanent?
That's what, we will, because our enrollment is declining,
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking is, can we go down one whole bus route?
Yeah.
In the coming year? I think it's gonna depend on who moves into the new houses in the Donald and the Hubbard areas. You know, will they have students or not? And then how many kids can you put on the bus? Our contract reads that students should not be on the bus for more than 50 minutes. And that's not a challenge in Hubbard or Donald, but when you're going to some of the surrounding areas, if you do Buteville and then Donald, and then it can get you close to the. We will definitely be looking at that. At the beginning of the school year, we always send addresses of this, each student and the addresses, so they can put what bus number they're gonna be on. And then that gives them numbers, and then they can look at that. They have a program, I believe.
Yes.
So definitely looking into something like that. And that could save, I'd say $80,000 to $90,000 if we go down one bus route for the whole year. So it's money. For sure.
With the transportation contract coming up, like it's coming to an end, I think in 27, isn't, I think it's
Sounds
2027.
about right.
Would we maybe look at renegotiating, like maybe it's 20 minutes or 18 minutes or something like that, or do we
For a
have,
bus route.
yeah, like, who can't be on it?
And then you'd have to have about 6 or 8 more drivers, and then it costs us about $1 million.
No, I'm just saying, like, is there any, like, what type of negotiation is done?
Everything can be open.
Okay.
You have that, whether or not you need more small buses, whether or not you want athletic storage on some of the buses for, like, say, track and football
Oh,
and
right,
that kind of things.
Okay.
We pay on per mileage basis, per mile basis. A lot of contracts are, with, they fluctuate with fuel prices, and we do not. But we have a base mileage per bus per day of 77 miles, whether they go that or not. And that is part of the contract that we negotiated years ago, and we kept that going. We seem to, not whine as much about our transportation costs, so my peers who pay when the fuel prices fluctuate. So hopefully it is.
How often are they free to raise per mile rate?
Once a year.
Once a year, so
Yeah,
you're locked in.
unless they come to us and beg, which they did in the January, maybe it
And
was.
fuel's gone both up and down.
Yeah.
They came to us because they couldn't attract any drivers, and their drivers were going to neighboring districts because they were paying
So that wasn't because of fuel, that was labor.
more labor related than anything. They, you know, it's hard to, you train up a driver, there's a lot invested in them, and then they can. Well, the other thing that was going on is most districts were paying a bonus, one-time sign-on bonus. And we just had to stay so long. If the so long is only 6 months, they could get 2 sign-on bonuses in 1 year.
It's gonna be a little, with ESSER running out, it's gonna level the field a little bit on these things, because lots of districts were using ESSER funds for substitute teacher bonuses, bus driver bonuses, and able to pay more and things like that. And that's, that's where coming back out of the pandemic, that's where.
But you don't want just anyone driving that bus.
And I want them well trained. Think we don't. Anyway, I think this is just a good summary sheet that we might enjoy, digging deeper into. Pages 24 to 49 are the general fund summary. So we have 2 funds, 100 and 101, mostly 100. And it gives you a tighter picture of where we're spending our money. The next group of pages is all of our other funds, our special revenue funds, our debt service and our capital projects. 51 through 75, that's the type summary. And then pages 76 to 224 is really detailed information. And if you did look and you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. I might not have the answer on the details today, but I can sure get that for you. Near the end of the book, I'm starting on page 225, and I have to apologize. We have a contract with what's called Frontline now, but it used to be called Forecast 5, and they did a lot of new information for us, but I could not get the numbers to change. You'll see we have numbers 228, 229, 30, 31, and 32 like 5 times, and I couldn't make them work. And I was the one making the numbers with it. So. Anyway, starting on page 226, this gives you a good idea of the funds we have and what we use the money for, just a general idea. Like when you're going through and you're looking at 211 and you don't know what that is, you can come here and see that it's a title. So it gives you sort of a snapshot. And then the next pages are what we call our function codes. So there's revenue functions and there's expense functions. And it gives you an idea of 1111, our current year's property tax. So when you're looking in the revenue section, that's where you'll see, you can bring this back to that if you don't see it written. And then the same idea with all of the expense functions, and there's a lot. We add a couple more, it seems like every year. The next page, 230, well, I don't really know, I have a page in mind, but the one with the right thing is a forecast 5, and I apologize, I could not get their color scheme to be mine, but it's, but this is a good piece of information for since 2020 to the current budget of 2025. Kind of gives you an idea of the fluctuation in the revenues and the expenses, and it's a great place to look. You'll see a big blip in 2022. That was the 21-22 school year when we did our PERS UAL, our second unfunded liability bond of 2021. So it was about a $1.5 million. So you see that big fluctuation of it. It's an other use that might happen again, hopefully in a long time. I think that's all I really have, unless people have questions for me.
I did have a question. I think it's on page 53. Under the middle junior high programs function 1121 under 150, the coach activity mentors. We have their proposed budget. We're not cutting. Are we removing any services that they're getting at the middle school level or extracurricular?
Tell me what page again, Chris.
53. Under function 1121. Item number 150, coach activities mentors. We went from 15,564 to 6237.
I'll have to look that up. I wonder if we moved it to 1122.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, there's no plan. No plan.
It's all the same.
Yeah, mhm, yeah.
But if it should be different and move from one to the other, I'll move it forward. Yeah.
And then the only other question I have is on page 75. We have a building acquisition. Put in for 24-25. I wasn't sure.
The proposed, the 300.
Yeah. Yeah,
That could be anything, that's a construction excise tax.
Oh,
or
okay.
What might come up.
Okay.
And I do believe we might have something come up, but it won't be under building acquisition.
Okay.
We might have a little work to do with our water.
yeah, I was wondering if that was it. Okay, thanks.
But it could be like, if we wanted to do like new songs.
Mhm.
That could be where that.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Rhodes?
Well, I'm sure you've thought it through. I don't pretend to have studied 300 pages in the last 3 days, but I did think about the utilities expense, and you mentioned that. I don't know if PGE has let it out that they were going up 17%, and I see you allowed quite a bit. Whether that's gonna be enough, are they really going another 18? I know, domestically, we've seen big jumps. But contingencies, I suppose we've covered.
Yeah.
If necessary.
When we built the high school, we have some solar panels and they're supposed to pay me back. So, give me a little break. We do our best to estimate that. Their rates usually change in January, so they usually get 6 months of no more hike. So the hike is only for 6 month period for us. So I try to keep that in mind. when I
One of the
estimate.
bankers I knew meeting, and they got on their phone right away and said, oh yeah, they're gonna raise this much. I don't know where they went to find that out.
Yeah, they just raised about 17% and they're supposed to.
So you
Out.
programmed that in already.
It is one of those areas, it's a good example of one of those areas that a lot of groups are working with the governor and ultimately with legislators on right now. That statement I made about the kind of, the current state funding formulas are not keeping pace with inflation and the needs of students and those types of things. Utilities is one of those areas where the formulas they're using to think about what a roll-up cost is for a school district is flawed at this point. It doesn't match the reality, and that's just one of the areas where it doesn't really match.
Well,
So
it's a good
those,
point to lobby, because it's a situation they created along with the transportation field.
Mhm. Exactly.
Maybe have some obligation to try to help us.
There's some optimism around, some shifts, the changes in terms of the way those are being calculated at the state level in terms of, what the starting point would be. And we know that folks are working on that right now as we speak, because by December, the governor and will have developed the next biennium budget and release that. So we know that right now is the time, for us to act about influencing that, so. Because I was telling Linda, so. Head up to Salem. Or down to Salem. Yes.
Is there anybody exploring, like, working with the Oregon Energy Trust Fund to get the grants associated with that, or upgrading some of our lighting to LED or motion sensors or?
We participate in Senate Bill 1149 and we have spent that money ahead of itself on the bond project. So we were able to get about, I want to say about $500,000 in energy savings through that bond. Money from Senate Bill 1149, which plays with the Energy Trust, paid for that. So that money just gets switched over. There's a place in here where we'll see a transfer in and a transfer out of the same amount. This year's about $60,000. Last year was 400 and something. Because we took the money that was holding in that could only be used for energy savings projects and moved it over to pay for capital stuff that hasn't been done, and now we're just finishing that. So we haven't done We haven't looked into any more recently, because our bulk of the money is gone. And, it'll start to fill back up. Lead towards the end of this year. So 24, 25. Start to plug into it. I'd like to be able to have that fund along with what's going on with Energy Trust, to try to group it together. You can usually do it.
Yeah, okay.
I agree.
Any other questions?
I did have one more question on page 207, 208. Measure 98 grant went down about 24K. Did we just move that money around or is that grant being lowered?
No, it's based on enrollment.
Okay,
It went down.
thanks.
It's based on enrollment at the high school.
Which line item are you looking at?
Total fund of 298 and then down below total function 1131. Then it shows a little bit of our difference. Up above now, under this page right here.
Any other questions for Dr. Rhodes or Linda? Any other comments?
I think we're good. I do always like to say that, you know, a budget is good for a day. And what I'm predicting as the ending fund balance is not always what it is. We still have, you know, a month and a half left of this school, and then we have a lot of this coming, and then there'll be adjustments from there. So I like to be within $100,000. I'm not guaranteeing that, but by the end of May, I'll know better and be.
Just me a question. So can you say like as a percentage, what would be our ending fund balance or contingency fund for this proposed budget?
This budget, the contingency is 4.5%, right at, within a couple $1,000.
So I would just like to state for the record that we have had, we went down, I think the lowest we ever went was after the recession, like in about 2000. Remind me, what was the lowest we ever went as a percentage?
Well, I don't know what the percentage was, but it was $400,000.
Yeah,
It was really, and then we moved it to 3%.
you're right. But then we made a target several years ago to move back up to 6%. Because the rule of thumb is usually that we want to have 1 month's worth of expenses set aside. And so this is dipping below our ideal.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, yes. I think we have to remember, well,
We've actually thought a lot about this. As we shared in the work section, late April. Our state school fund took a little bit of a jolt in terms of a calculation for one of the weighted pieces in that state school fund. And it's late April, the beginning of May, and we're looking at about 600,000 that we're trying to determine how to deal with over the course of this year and next year. We looked at a lot of things. It really caused us to need to look at what the next couple of years might look like, you know, in terms of being able to decide what would be a reasonable ending fund balance percentage. We took into account a lot of things. We wanted to give ourselves and staff and others an opportunity to plan for reductions that we know will be coming based on our enrollment. So we can see, you know, we look very carefully into the crystal ball, where the enrollment is, what grade levels and those types of things, and we can see, you know, where some of those reductions can occur in the future. We thought that a reduction in staff at this point would probably would put in harm's way the opportunity to serve kids who need the most to be served right now in terms of that. We just could not find, and we figured that 0.5% is about 1 staff. so that's what
License.
licensed staff is about what will get you to 5%. And another would get you to 5.5%. And we looked really hard, and principals looked hard, at their buildings and their staffing and their results and the service we needed for children. And we just, aside from, at the primary school where you're seeing a reduction, aside from that natural reduction that we're making there, we couldn't find another staff member that we felt wouldn't hurt our ability to serve students, the way they deserve. We can see opportunities down the road and with more time, to plan, organize, restructure some things. We believe that we can do that well and in a way that not just serves students and staff well, but in a real humane way. That respects, opportunities that ultimately, if you start to reduce staff, opportunities for staff to be able to kind of look around, to be able to see, kind of that work in motion, respect their opportunity to possibly look, for another position or something like that in a timely manner. As you know, because I know you're all kind of reading the paper and seeing those types of things that, when 150 staff members were laid off Friday in Salem Kaiser, that's kind of short notice to be able to go out and try and make some jobs, and plus just the disruptions that all of the reach up bring. Because it's never in any district, because of the way layoff and recall works and things like that. It's never just one thing you do. There's a whole process put in place, in terms of moving those things around. It affects a lot of people. So we really believe that there's a path forward. We're also optimistic because our lobbyists, the folks that are actually working with the governor right now around some state funding issues, are optimistic, and they're usually not. But they kind of feel some things starting to shift and change. And so we're optimistic that the next biennium, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to solve everything. But it's going to give us some hope, that we can stay steady, with our work and not have, kind of a drastic reaction to the declining enrollment that we're seeing right now, which is our primary concern. And others across the state are feeling the same. Now that was, what I mean? I mean, that in essence was, main thing. We also know that if you stop doing something after you've been doing it like for a whole year, you lose the investment that you made in all that. Just an example, Des and her crew have been knocking themselves out, you know what I mean? I mean, literally knocking themselves out on going through the process to select science materials for all of our schools and primary math materials and English language development materials with Irma and Des. A common place districts go during these times is to say, well, let's hold off on that adoption. It's a move, but you actually now lost all of that investment that you made, along the way to get there. The same thing goes for a staff member who you've invested in, and they've invested in over the course of an entire year. And then if suddenly, they're not back, and if suddenly others are teaching at different grade levels and things like that, you've lost a lot of investment that you made in the teams and the work, all during the course of the year. So there are hidden costs, that aren't as obvious as just what you cut and gain from making a cut. So important that we talked about this. We didn't know if it was going to come up or if we were just going to bring it up, to talk about it. But it is something that we've given a lot of thought to. And I will just say that when you've got someone paying as close to attention over year after year after year after year, as Linda Murray has, to those monies and the shifts that they make and how they move. And the the projections, that can be made, and predictions that can be made that this all involves, can genuinely be banked on and trusted. Because we've seen it over and over again, and you don't always have a business manager with that much experience or who pays that close attention to all of the little moving parts that go along with developing a budget like that.
It's harder in a larger district to be as detailed. I go person, you can't do that when you have 3,000 staff members. I can't.
So when you mention staff, does that include administration as well?
It
Or
was,
is it just licensed like teachers and IAs, or is it the whole picture?
you'd look at the whole picture, and we have looked at the whole picture. Again, this, the declining enrollment would have implications for us. The other thing that, that we've talked about and hope that it doesn't go unnoticed, there's a lot of times, it's one thing to have the pay, to be able to take care of the payroll at the end. It's another thing to have, funds on hand if your boiler blows up, or if your roof caves in, or all of those kinds of things. So the investments that the district has made in those kinds of, capital improvement projects and safety projects and all of those things, it's like money in the bank. You're not gonna have to put a roof anywhere, you know what I mean, in anywhere in the near future. You've got, you've got hopefully lots of things under warranty right now with and so those things, again, aren't unnoticed when you're kind of thinking about a decision like that, because oftentimes you'll see if districts have higher ending fund balances, it's because they've got some capital project they've got in their mind that they know that's gonna have to come out of the general fund because they don't have a bond, or or they've got some aging facilities and things like that. So, that's another, big factor, in terms of, creating a little bit of kind of safety, psychological safety, about that. And then I think there's always the understanding that, it is something that, you can't keep going rolling. You've got to try to work your way back, to a fund balance that you're most comfortable. Ultimately.
Well, that's a concern I had looking at the budget, is that there be enough repair and maintenance in an account to cover those things. My observation is you're right, the facility's pretty well cared for right now. But that as you look around, even south to Jervis, you can see what can happen over time if you fail to have that repair and maintenance budget there and make those repairs as they come. And what were you planning for an ending fund balance? Was that the 4.5%?
Yes, the contingency. One.
I think too, they've certainly done well with managing.
For the ending fund balance for this fiscal year that we're in, the budget shows 2.8.
Right,
That's
that you
the one
carried
I'm
over
not
from
sure.
last year, and so it won't be quite as high at the end of
Unless,
this fiscal year, probably, but
yeah, we have several big markers, October 1 is a big day for us. What is officially enrollment? And that is how we funded for state. That's a big deal. So where we land with our license negotiations will be a big deal for the budget. There are things that are up that are not finished, and that's just part of building a budget. Some of my peers had to have their budget done by the end of March. I'm thinking, you didn't even see that fluctuation in April from the states that are from, so that's tough on them.
So do you get forecast guidance at all for like the new housing developments? Like how many we think are gonna be like family that are gonna have kids that are gonna go, I mean, I was just curious.
We have done that before in there. Portland State does a pretty good job of it. You can look on their information. What they're seeing is very low birth rates and
Yeah.
less than half a kid per house.
Okay, I was just curious what
But that doesn't mean that's what
is gonna
the
happen.
community of
Yeah.
Donald and Pepper did, but that's what genuine.
Yeah, I just was curious.
But, you know, we,
Those houses aren't cheap and those.
no, and that's.
I know,
that's
it's
just
crazy.
it. Who can
Yeah,
afford that?
yes, I know.
You know, they're probably not gonna have 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a interesting thing. I work with a little bit with all of the, people that send me the money for the construction
Yeah.
excise tax out of the cities.
Yeah.
And, the lady in Donald let me know that they don't expect to do any more permits for about a year.
Okay.
That was probably in January-ish, when she told me that, so. And then
Cause they're
probably-
doing like 2 more rows right now. I'm curious how many they'll
Yeah,
have.
those permits that we've
Yeah.
already gotten,
Then I-
but yeah, so I would assume they're, you know, have a process and wanna sell some before they start the next year.
Any other questions or comments? I'd like to turn the time to those that are here from the public. If they have any comments or any questions? No dances or? If we have a need for further meeting, if this doesn't pass, we will be meeting on Thursday, the 23rd for further deliberations. May need to stop it this Thursday. Prior to the budget committee and board approved the North Marion School District proposed 24-25 budget in the amount of $41,998,514 as presented. Be it resolved that the budget committee of North Marion School District 15 hereby imposes the taxes provided for in the approved budget at the district's permanent rate of $3.333 per thousand of assessed value for operations in the amount of $2,314,173 for the debt service on the general obligation bonds, and that these taxes are hereby imposed and categorized for the tax year 2024-25 upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district.
So we.
So
need a
point of
motion.
order, yeah, we need to do a vote on both those items, or at least have a motion.
Diane,
Do we have a motion to approve our proposed budget?
Diana has a question.
I think it's resolved. I was just gonna say we need 2 motions, so you're doing it. We're good.
Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 budget?
I motion that we approve the 2024-25 proposed budget as presented.
Second,
I second.
thank you.
Diane, that was Emily.
Stacy, but the,
Motion.
had the motion.
You. Let's vote for all those in favor of the proposed budget as presented.
Do we have a discussion and then?
Yeah, is there discussion?
I would just like to say I will be voting for the budget, but I'm very uncomfortable with the 4.5% ending fund balance. We as a board had decided that we would be at 6% by now, so I'm very uncomfortable with it and hopefully it resolves itself in the next year.
I'll echo that and say that the auditors want to see us at 7 to 10%.
That's
No, thank you. All those in favor of approving the budget as presented, say aye. Any opposed? The chair votes favor.
Thank you.
Now for the next, for the imposing of the categorized taxes,
Yeah, you can go ahead and ask for a motion
we
to.
have a motion to vote on that.
I motion for the resolution imposing and categorizing taxes fiscal year 24-25.
Thank you, Stacy. Second,
I'll second that.
thank you, Glenn.
Do you need that read out, Diane? Is that your point of order?
No,
Okay,
you already read it.
Okay, let's have a vote on the resolution imposing and categorizing taxes for the fiscal year 2024-25. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes for. Any other items to bring before the committee at this time? Thank you all for your services, and we will adjourn.
Thank you very much, and thank you for clearing Thursday night for senior awards night.
If you guys don't want these books, I recycle binders.